Good afternoon, everyone. This is Susan Patrick with Stambaugh Ness, and welcome to our May Virtual Vision User Group meeting. First, I want to apologize for us having to kind of push it a week. Melissa and I both had some unexpected travel that kind of made it impossible, I guess, for us to be in two places at one time. We haven't quite figured out how to duplicate ourselves, and once we do, we'll let you know. But we're just going to kind of cruise right along, as we always do, and just kind of walk through, first and foremost, some housekeeping related items. Again, we have a lot of people signed up today. I know everybody is chomping at the bit to learn more and more about Vantagepoint. We have almost 500 people signed up today. So of course you are all put on mute. I can't even imagine how crazy that would be if we left all of your lines open and the noise chaos that would ensue. The presentation should be listed under the handout section, so you should be able to get the PowerPoint there. If you have any issues with that, please let us know. Second of all, and again, most of you I think are all veterans at joining our meetings, but for those of you that might be new, you can use the little arrow, the number 1, to kind of push the whole go to webinar panel out of your way if it's taking up some of your screen. You can also use the full screen box, number 2, to make it take over your whole full screen. I always joke about the raising the hand. You can raise that all day and all night, but we rarely pay attention because people like to mess with us and just raise it just for no reason. And then, of course, as far as questions go, please do not put them in any chat window. We don't monitor that. Any questions that you have during the presentations today, put those in the questions panel, and we will do our best to get them answered during the event today. Depending on the volume, some of them might have to wait, and we might have to just respond to you after the event, just, kind of depending on the volume that comes through as we get into these Vantagepoint conversations. So second of all, again, I'm Susan Patrick. We have Melissa Garner on board and Stacy Farrell as well. And as always, we thank Kaylee to kind of keep us on the straight and narrow. So we're going to go through some news and updates, and then we're going to continue on with our Preparing for Vantagepoint, the series. We're going to talk about opportunities merging into projects, which I call Proportunities. And then we also have some information on security roles. Can someone on my team confirm that you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Can someone respond to Lindy?
I've been ignoring you, but I can hear you.
That's typical. Someone respond to Lindy that might need to call back in.
Sure will.
As far as news and updates go, our next virtual user group meeting currently is scheduled for June 19th. And again, most likely the topics are going to be more Vantagepoint related. I'm not sure if we fine-tuned that selection at this point or not, but we will certainly let you know when we do. Then as far as our face-to-face meetings go, on June 11th, we have our Central PA user group meeting. And then the following week on June 20th, we have our Pittsburgh user group meeting. And then, of course, Insight. I know November seems so far away. Now that we've finally started to get some decent weather, and then here I push you forward into November thinking about, for those northern clients, the cold and the winter. But it'll be here before we know it. Great news is our entire team will be there this year, so we look forward to seeing you there. So please make sure that you check that out and register so we can, us northerners can come from the cold, bitter north down to beautiful Orlando for that particular event. And that's all I have for news and updates. June is kind of a slow period for us for webinars. So before I turn this over to Stacy, we do have 2 polling questions that we're going to go ahead and pull up. So Kaylee, can you grab up the first one? All right, awesome. So the first poll has to do with opportunities, whether you use them or not. And if you do use them, do you number them? So some information, interesting information. We got about a quarter people don't use them at all. little bit don't, but would like to. I should have asked if you actually have CRM. I guess that would have been a decent follow-up question. And it actually looks like the majority that do use them do number them. So that's really important information for Stacy. And for those of you that are using them and numbering, you need to kind of keep your ears perked. Don't fall asleep. You need to pay attention to Stacy's presentation. So let's go ahead and close out that poll, and let's bring up the next one. So the next poll is, do you link your opportunities and your projects? All right, so as we're trending right along, it looks like about 2/3 of those that use opportunities do, and then about the other third do not. So I think, again, that gives you some decent background information. So we can go ahead and turn this over to Stacy, and I will just kind of put myself on mute and kind of sit on the sidelines if you need me. So Stacy, it's all yours. I think we can go ahead and make you presenter. There you go.
All right, great. Thanks, Susan. Hopefully everyone can see my screen okay. What I'm going to be focusing on today is the merging of opportunities into projects, as Susan had mentioned, and I'm going to be focusing only on how that affects the Projects Hub and Vantagepoint. So we're not going to be going over, typical accounting functions. We're going to be really focusing on what that means for CRM users and users that have been using opportunities previously within Vision. All right, and the biggest thing is now that everything's going to be combined into the one Projects Hub, you're going to be managing your entire project life cycle from pursuit all the way through execution within the Projects Hub. You can still create your promotional projects for associating, any charges regarding that pursuit, whether it's, time or expenses. But your regular project, that initial in-pursuit project that used to be an opportunity in Vision, is going to flow through from pursuit all the way through to any billable activities once that project is ultimately awarded. So that's going to be the biggest difference, is you're going to be managing everything centrally, directly within the Projects Hub. The biggest benefit, of course, is this will provide the ability for marketing and accounting to coexist. You'll be able to collaborate much more efficiently. Everything will be located directly in the Projects Hub, relating to not only your, booked revenue, but also any potential revenue for those in-pursuit projects. And you're not going to have any more duplicate entries that are going to be required. You're no longer going to have to manage, the opportunity record separately and then transfer or maintain information after the win within the actual project. And since that process is going to change quite a bit, since everything's going to begin with a regular project, it's important to note that accounting, once that in-pursuit project is ultimately awarded, you can then still go in and apply your structure with any existing project templates that you might have. You're not going to lose that capability. And Melissa's going to be talking a little bit more about security at the end of the presentation, but I just wanted to point out that there are some additional security and workflow features that will help you manage the process a little easier, such as the ability to, have security and workflow based on stage, which would be formerly your opportunity stage from Vision, and also the charge type for the project, whether that's, regular, promotional, or overhead. All right, so what you'll be able to see now that opportunities and projects are combined is all of that information, again, directly within the Projects Hub. Within Vantagepoint, you'll have the summary pane, which will allow you to see a summary of win-loss details, which would be from the in-pursuit project, as well as the pursuit details. and then ultimately the project details. So if we jump into Vantagepoint quickly, show you what you can see within an in pursuit project. And again, these sections can be expanded or collapsed. Of course, there won't be much project details because this project here is still in the proposal stage. So it's still in what would be considered an in pursuit project within Vantagepoint. All right. And each section, again, can be expanded, and you'll be able to see the stage step directly within that summary pane as well. So you'll be able to easily see what pursuits have been awarded versus what's still pending. All right, so let's go down here. Within those in pursuit projects, one of the nice things is you're now able to see the work breakdown structure, and you're able to also see any of the associated promotional projects that might be associated to that in pursuit project, like you're seeing here. And in order to open up that structure, if we go back into Vantagepoint here, you'll notice an icon to the left of the actual project name. And if we expand on that, that's going to show us the project structure. So here you'll see my linked promotional project where I'm charging, any of my time and or expenses. And you'll notice this specific example also has phases associated to it. All right, so you still have that ability. That process has not changed with the merging of the two hubs together in Vantagepoint. All right, and we talked a little bit about stage. If those of you that use Opportunities now, you're used to hopefully classifying and grouping your opportunities by stages, whether they're, pending or in pursuit or submitted or shortlisted or what have you, whatever your terminology is. Some important things to note that CRM users will have that capability brought over into the Projects Hub. If you only own resource planning and not CRM, then you will have stages available, but they're going to be hard-coded. In other words, you're not going to be able to update those list values or customize them at all. You'll only have those in pursuit, won or lost stages available to you. And if you only use Vision for accounting today, you will not have this project stage field available at all. And depending on what stage you're selecting, if we go to modify the stage here, that will drive what additional fields you have available for populating. So if I wanted to update my stage in this example to an awarded value, then you'll notice some of those fields that are going to look familiar to the CRM users and Opportunities are going to be available in the stage dialog. So I'll have the ability to document, the reason for the win or the loss, and also any notes. And these have just simply been renamed. One loss, of course, used to be closed reason and vision, and the one loss notes are that closed notes memo field. And this is where you would access that information in order to transfer over this project from an in pursuit to an executed project. All right, let's see here. All right, so again, Opportunities, of course, is merging into projects. You're going to be creating those in pursuit projects, again, as a regular project. You won't have Opportunities any longer. One key thing, and one of the reasons for the polling questions that Susan had was, just like in Vision, the project number is a required field. So in other words, any in pursuit project or what used to be an opportunity, you're going to have to provide a number for that project. So that might, change the way that you currently are numbering your projects. It's going to be something that you want to consider moving forward. You're also going to want to make sure, if you're not already numbering your opportunity records, that you do provide an opportunity number prior to upgrading to Vantagepoint. And we'll talk more about that as we get through the presentation, but I just want to hit on that several times. It's going to be a required field, so you're going to want to make sure that you're thinking through that process and what your numbering systems are currently like today and what they might evolve to as you move into Vantagepoint. Okay, and again, your regular in pursuit project. It's going to be the same project from pursuit all the way through execution. And as long as the accounting module is owned the approved for use and processing checkbox, that is still going to control which project can be used in timesheets and expenses. And like I mentioned earlier, security roles, you can now define the charge types for which users can create certain types of projects. So you can have that flexibility within Vantagepoint, since you're going to be now sharing that projects hub even more so than you probably already are today. All right, so what happens to all of your fields that are currently available in your Opportunities Info Center in Vision? Those fields are going to be brought over. All of those standard fields that are available, like the opportunity stage, which is now going to be project stage, or revenue, all those key standard fields, those are now going to be available within the Projects Hub, and any of your user-defined fields are also going to be brought over. You'll notice in the screenshot here that any user-defined fields or tabs, user-defined tabs that have been created and exist within Vision will be brought over into Vantagepoint with a prefix. So on my tab here, you'll see the OPP prefix designating that this was an opportunity tab, and same with this specific field here. Some other things to consider, I know we've touched on this with some of the other info centers, is that any standard fields, they will be brought in the upgrade to their default tab and location. So if you've done reorganizing and moved standard fields from one tab to another, you're going to want to document and take some screenshots of what you have in Vision today, as a lot of that's going to have to be redone, and you're going to have to reorganize your tabs again on the upgrade. Regarding the user, yes.
Stacy, once you've finished this piece, I think we should pause. We're getting a lot of questions, and before you go into more of how to prepare, I think we should address some of these questions as soon as you finish this slide.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, so just a couple more things on the fields from Opportunities. Any user-defined fields that you have that were located on a standard tab, so in other words, if you had user-defined fields that you created within Vision on the General tab, those are going to be dropped in on the Overview tab, like you see here in Vantagepoint, and they're going to be added to the bottom of any of those standard fields. And as you can see here, any fields that currently reside in the user-defined fields on user-defined tabs that have been created in Opportunities, they're going to remain on that tab just in a random order. Your screen settings will not come over. And then I'll pause there. Melissa, if you have some specific questions that we need to address.
Yeah, I think that they're helpful for everybody to hear the answers to these, and since they're not able to see that in the questions panel, that's why I paused you. So a couple of times we've been asked, will the existing stages that already are in 7.6 move over to Vantagepoint?
Yes, they will, and you'll be able to manage that list and update it. They'll be brought over to the project stage. And what you'll notice is, instead of just having a description and a code like you have in Vision, you also have the stage step, and that designates whether or not it's a win or a loss, or if it's still in pursuit.
So one of the other questions is, do you have full control over this list, or are there any that have to stay there as is?
You have full control. Yeah, in this example here, these all came over from my demo database. These are all my current settings.
Okay. Next question is, can the win-loss info be updated later rather than at award? Their admins award and set up projects don't have that info. Not quite sure I understand that question. Let me know if you need more info from Julie.
I think what you're meaning is, if you go in and update the stage at one point, can you then go in and later modify those fields if there's nothing provided? We can just test that really quickly. So what I did was I just updated in this specific one my stage to awarded. So then if I go to the win-loss details, It's not letting me do it there, but if I go back to the stage field, I do have the ability to then modify this information. So yes.
Okay, and then how will the current numbering carry over if they use different numbering for opportunities than they do for projects and promotional projects, which I know this is going to be a sticking point.
Yeah, this is going to be a doozy. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is you're going to want to make sure that the length of the number of your opportunity number does not exceed your project settings. And you'll notice here, one of the things that I noticed when we converted my demo database is in my system, I use the same opportunity number for the promotional project that's created. And what happened on the upgrade, what you see here, this is my opportunity number in Vision and also my promotional project number. But what happened in Vantagepoint is it modified it because, of course, you can't have a project with a duplicate number in the system. So it randomly assigned it an alphanumeric number, which starts here with Z. That was my opportunity in Vision prior to upgrading.
So I think one of the important things to note here is that I know a lot of the firms out there today, their project numbers have some sequential element to them. And in Vantagepoint going forward, opportunities are actually regular projects. So they do need to be numbered. So I think as a firm, you have to decide, do you want to give it a number while it's an opportunity and then key convert that number to something else once it's been awarded? Or do you want to just continue with using your sequential numbers, knowing that that sequentialness of the number will technically no longer be a valid count of how many projects you actually were awarded that year? It'll be a count of how many projects you actually pursued that year. So something to take into consideration. Okay. I'm going to let you go ahead, Stacy, and then we might circle back when you're finished.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, so let's go into the next area here. We were talking about the numbering. What this slide is summarizing is how the information is going to come over, how it's going to be mapped from your opportunity now into your in pursuit project. And in order for the opportunity to come in and link to your existing project, especially for those awarded opportunities, you're going to want to make sure that that link is established between the opportunity and that regular project. Once that link is established, any opportunity data, well, I shouldn't say any, the majority of the opportunity data will then update that existing project record in Vantagepoint. Any new field that was added to projects due to the merging of opportunities is going to be updated from the opportunity. And there are specific cases where project information will win and nothing from the opportunity will come over, such as the project name, the project manager, and the primary client. If that information is different in your opportunity, it's not going to override what you currently have within projects. Some other things worth noting are any activities that you had associated in Vision to that opportunity. They're going to be added to the project record. And employees with specific roles noted in the grid, such as marketing coordinator, proposal manager, business development lead, those will come over to the project, but no other employee team members for the opportunity are added to the project team. And also with contacts, your contacts are going to come over from the opportunity, but no additional firms from the opportunity are going to be added to that firm's grid. So if you had multiple firms listed, that will not come over during the upgrade automatically into that project record. Okay, and then if you had anything in the opportunity in your marketing campaigns, files, or links, that will come over to the project. And then finally, related to the plan, if the opportunity had a plan, that opportunity plan is removed and the project plan is then retained as part of that merging of the records. Okay, so it's really important. You need to make sure you link your opportunities because any opportunity that is not linked to a project is going to be brought in as a new regular project. And it'll either be, active or inactive based on that specific stage that's associated to the record. All right, so we've talked quite a bit about some things to consider before you upgrade. There's couple other things that I think are key to note. Many of you, I'm sure, have fields that have been created, user-defined fields, in both opportunities and projects, and then you've mapped them together within the user-defined grid like you see here on the screen. What's going to happen is that project record is going to come over and it will not have the prefix, but as part of the upgrade, it's also going to bring in that same mapped field, even if it's the exact same name, into the project, and it'll throw in that OPP prefix to designate that that came over from the opportunity. So that's another area where you're going to have to plan for either consolidating the information, making sure, anything appropriate gets transferred over to the field, the project field that's going to remain, so that then you can plan to delete any of those duplicated fields that were available within opportunities and projects. Okay, some other things you're going to want to think about are your workflows. Of course, your opportunity workflows are going to need upgraded because the opportunity table in Vantagepoint does not exist. So you're going to want to document your existing workflows and determine which of those you're going to need to recreate. Some of the most common ones, such as closing out the opportunity based on the stage that's selected, won't necessarily be needed because that functionality is already built into Vantagepoint based on the stage and the stage step that we showed you a couple minutes ago. As part of that as well, of course, any workflow that references an opportunity lookup field, that's going to need to be updated to look at the project instead. And any workflow that involves the promotional project field in projects is going to need to be updated as that field is removed. Again, we saw in the work breakdown structure where you can see that associated promotional project, but that link field that existed in Vision does not exist in Vantagepoint. And then finally, for any of you that use the Touch CRM application, if you had user-defined fields in clients, contacts, or opportunities that you had brought into the Touch CRM application and had a section that you're showing it in within the app, you're going to want to make sure that those names are unique, just so you don't have any issues as part of the upgrade to Vantagepoint still accessing those fields. All right, and then a couple other things, we already talked about making sure that link is established between opportunities and projects. Another thing to consider is removing any unwanted opportunity records. And by unwanted, I mean if you had duplicate records that were accidentally created and you didn't delete them or consolidate them prior to, you just maybe mark them as inactive, you want to make sure those are taken out so that they're not brought over. And then we talked about the opportunity number as well. If you're using the same number currently for your opportunity number in your promotional projects, we saw where that can cause an issue with the number not being maintained for that new In Pursuit project that was your opportunity. So you'll want to think about that as well, in addition to the other items that Melissa had mentioned, as it relates to the numbering of your projects. Another big one, which hopefully you've already done if you're using opportunities, is making sure that your opportunity type and your project type code tables, that they're currently aligned. And the way that Vantagepoint is going to match up those values is based on the description within that code table. So you'll want to make sure that those are exact matches. And then some other things to consider are, as you're thinking about the different functionality within Vantagepoint, how is that going to change your current business processes? Make sure you document that so that you're prepared to provide, user training after the upgrade and get everybody on board with using Vantagepoint now instead of Vision. And then here I've just provided some simple things or a checklist that you can use for things you're going to want to do after the upgrade. We talked about if your process is going to change, you're going to have to adjust that, update your project numbering possibly, consolidate some of those duplicated user-defined fields. We saw, where they're going to come in from opportunities, and that project one is going to still exist as well. And then making sure that your field and tab layouts are done. And then, of course, can't stress it enough, document everything and make sure that your users are trained. And that is pretty much it for me. I'm sure we have other questions. I know it's a lot that we're trying to squeeze into the presentation.
You opened up the Pandora's box.
I'm sure.
And the questions panel is exploding. So I think based on what we're seeing from the variety and the volume of questions is I think that Melissa and I will probably have a session 2 in our June meeting that expands upon this whole combining, where we can get to more details, specifics, and examples of project numbers, opportunity numbers, and just kind of walk through that to help the group, the attendees, get a better visual of what all this means, because this is certainly something that looks like it's creating a little bit of angst with the attendees today.
I'm sure.
So hang tight. Desiree agrees. She's like, yes, please do that. So we will certainly put that on board for next month, and we'll take the questions and we'll help utilize those questions to kind of build out the framework for what we present next time.
Yeah, we'll take the examples that you all have given us, and if you want to put in more examples of how you number, plus the question came up of what if we have a one-to-many relationship with the opportunities attached to the projects, which I don't think we've addressed at all. Go ahead.
It's going to take the project. So whatever opportunity is associated to the project on what's typically on the general tab in that opportunity link, that's how it's going to establish the link. It's a one-to-one. It won't link it to more than one based on Deltek's documentation.
But what if they have it linked to more than one? What's it going to do on the second one? Do we know?
They can only link it to one, yeah.
It's a one-to-one.
A project can only be linked to one.
Yeah, unless they've created a user-defined field or a user-defined grid.
Okay. So I think we'll take all those scenarios and we'll give you a more visual perspective of here's what they look like before and here's what they look like after the upgrade.
All right.
Okay,
so with that said, we may or may not answer all of these questions that are in the questions panel about your specifics with numbers and stuff. We'll use those to kind of build out our examples for next time. And so, not to string you guys along, but more to come on that. So before we kind of turn it over to Melissa, I do have a polling question. So if we can go ahead, Kaylee, and pull up the last polling question of the day, I promise everyone. How long has it been since you reviewed your security roles? Within the last 6 months, within the last year, within the last 3 years, never, with a frowny face, or you're just not sure?
I think a lot of people have been heeding our advice and looking at their roles recently, because I'm surprised we're getting 47% have looked at them within the last 6 months.
That is awesome.
7% say never.
Ooh, I hope you guys are brand new users. All right, well, I think, Melissa, that gives you an idea of your audience. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and turn this over to Melissa.
All righty, thank you. Can you see my screen, Susan?
So, ma'am, I can.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, I just want to make sure before I move forward. Remember the one meeting where I was talking for 10 minutes and didn't realize I was on mute? Don't want that happen again. So I think my part of this meeting today is a little bit easier for you guys to absorb than the whole opportunities merging into projects, which is actually way cooler and way more exciting than people are probably feeling right now because of the project number issue. But with security roles, it's a little bit more calm The security roles that you have set up in 7.6 are obviously going to migrate and upgrade to Vantagepoint. However, as you can imagine, there's lots of new things in Vantagepoint, plus they've reorganized where everything lives. In Vantagepoint, in a lot of cases, they've renamed it. So because of those three factors and a few additional items that they've given you within security roles that you didn't have before, things are going to be different. So they're going to come over and they're going to be okay, but they're not going to be any type of role that I would want you guys to trust and move forward with. So as you can see here, and I'm going to bring the screen up in a second, but through this screenshot, the screen is very similar. The security role screens are very similar to the screens that you're used to in 7.6, but the new features have been added. The areas have been renamed and reorganized here on your menu bar. Also, one thing to note that as they migrate over, some of the settings revert back to the defaults, which I apologize, my screenshot is covering that, my words up here, due to the fact that they've combined some areas. So leads are combining into contacts, vendors are combined into firms or clients and becoming firms, and I thought I turned that off. And of course, as we mentioned today, opportunities are going into projects. So because of that, any security rights that you had around those areas and access rights are all gone because those areas don't exist anymore. So that's a huge, huge reason for you guys to make sure that you pay attention to security roles when you migrate up to Vantagepoint. And some of the areas of the screens have been completely removed. As you can see, there's no iAccess tab here because iAccess is technically Vantagepoint, and we don't need a separate tab for that anymore. So with that said, some of the changes that you will see throughout the security screens is that the menu items have been moved and renamed. There's a new role type that's been added. I'm going to actually bring it up for you here. I'm going to move this out of the way so I can have my notes over to the right and not bore you all with a screenshot. That's no fun. There's a new role type that they have, so it's called Setup. Those of you migrating from Vision to Vantagepoint don't ever need to worry about that role. That role is only for people who are new to Vision and newly implementing. They actually have to go through a Setup Wizard process first, and they're only allowed to sign on as the role type of Setup, and then once they have it configured, then they actually have to log out and sign on as a role as administrator. So a little bit confusing, but none of you have to worry about this on that call. There are also new menu items for new features. For example, the My Stuff. That is technically a new area, not necessarily a new feature. The self-service area has been relocated to My Stuff, so anything related to interfacing areas with your general population of your firm, timesheets, expense reports, the calendar timesheets, approval center, because many people in your firm can approve information within Vision, the reporting area, the cool dashboards that you're going to be able to create in Vantagepoint. Those are all located in My Stuff. And the dashboards change drastically. So they're not even set up and configured in the same manner as they were in 7.6 because they have so much more capabilities to them now, and they're so much easier to set up. Giving them access to them is also very easy to do. So keeping that in mind, the favorites organizing, which is kind of stated a little bit differently and is also separated. So for those of you who remember about security roles, when people are saving favorite reports or saved searches, you can choose whether you allow them to save them for everybody in the entire company and all the roles that exist, or to save them just for themselves or their role, people in their role, or you can have them just save them personally so they can't mess up any favorite that you've set up globally. So that is still here, but it's been separated from the dashboards and the dash parts. So dashboards and dash parts also have the ability to be created and saved for others. So now you can actually give them the ability to save dashboards for everyone, but saved searches and saved reports or favorite reports, maybe you limit them to just doing them personally. So that's cool that they've separated those. The other thing that is new, let's see if I can locate it. on this one, is this area right here, project creation rights. This never existed before. So now you have the ability to allow anybody within your firm to create projects or potentially automate that process for them to some extent with workflows. But with that being said, you can now control and give them the ability to create their own projects, but maybe only certain types of projects. So the marketing team may be able to create the promotional projects themselves, so the finance team doesn't need to do so. You can give them the ability to create projects, but only projects with a charge type of promotional, which will not give them the ability to create a regular or billable type of project. So that's awesome. There's also a new area under accounting here that the project budget, summary, and update % complete dialog boxes, which are scattered throughout the system. You have the ability to determine whether or not they have read-only access to those percentages, whether they can edit the % complete only, or whether they can edit the budget value and % complete, or whether they have full access. And once you move up to Vantagepoint, you have a better understanding of where those areas are and what they do, because they've all been relocated as well. The other thing that I thought was interesting that I want to make sure I come back here and show you guys is the transaction center. Underneath here is where you give them the ability to enter or edit each type of transaction. It used to be on the accounting tab. They've moved it out here to the general menu items. So if they're allowed to do AP transactions but nothing else, then you just check off the AP related transactions. So that's kind of interesting. On the accounting tab, that's where you can still come in there. And a lot of people didn't realize this. This was changed a while ago. So let me go back here and give them some access. And then over here, notice how it automatically saved. It's not letting me. There we go. When you select that area, you have this now in 7.6, but some people, if you haven't been in your security role for a while, you may not have noticed it. And this company column is only available if you have multi-company enabled. But these three checkboxes here, enter, report, and post, already exist in 7.6. So you can give users the ability to enter AP vouchers, AP disbursements, and report on them, but not post them. Somebody else may be responsible for posting them, or any combination thereof. You also can give them the ability, if you have multi-company, you can say this person in this role can enter AP for company 1 and enter AP for company 2, but not enter AP for company 3. So you can actually control that access by company now. So that you have in 7.6, and it transfers up to Vantagepoint as well. You'll also notice that on the planning tab, there's a lot less options to check. And this one, I'm not 100% sure if it's because there's still some pieces and parts of the planning module that haven't made it or won't make it into 2.0, or at least not the first release. Some may creep in the updates, and most won't be here till version 3. So the options on this screen may expand at that point. Also on your access rights tab, this tab used to be probably the most tedious tab, in my opinion, to configure in Vision, because you had so many areas to choose from. But now they've kind of pared it down, and they have given you some of the same functionality in there, but some of it they've moved to other areas and made it easier for you to select. So that's a much easier screen to navigate through now. So if you want to give people access to reports, instead of actually giving them access to the reporting area or each reporting area and then going and giving them access to the reports, the reporting area is only one checkbox. And then you can come in here and you can list all of the reports that you want them to be able to access simply by clicking on them and moving them over. And don't forget, one of my favorite things about Vantagepoint is the type ahead searching. So if I want to give them access to the project earnings report, I can just start typing it, and it slowly pares down the list as I'm typing. So that's pretty cool. I think that the views here are much more simplified and easier to use. It's very easy to come in here and go through these checkboxes. You can enable all, disable all, full access, just like you could before. The other thing that I think is important to note is the access rights. And here, I'll remember these screens. They can be different for the projects than they are for the plans. Even though the plans are part of the project's hub, they are a separate area of the project hub. So you can give people full access to all projects if you want to, but give them the ability to only see the plans that they are the manager of, even though they can see all the projects. Not sure you'd want to do that, or can't think of a situation off the top of my head that would make sense for that, but I'm sure there are some out there where that would make sense. Everything else is exactly the same in the security settings as they are in 7.6. They might just be relocated, like some are over here to the right where they used to be down the bottom. Aside from that, everything really is the same. Although there is a lot that is different. My recommendations for before upgrading is go through your roles. It looks like most of you have already started doing this process. We've been doing a lot of system reviews lately, and we've noticed that there's probably anywhere from 2 to 10 roles that have nobody assigned to them. So get rid of them. You don't need them. If you don't have anybody assigned to them, obviously nobody needs them. You can always recreate them later on if it comes back. But there's no need for them to migrate and have to be corrected when you upgrade. Evaluate the existing roles that you have. If you haven't looked at them in a long time, you may have too many roles. As we all know how roles evolve, somebody comes to you and goes, Susie needs to also do AR collections, but she's a project manager and none of the other project managers are going to do it, just Susie. So you end up creating a role for Susie that has access to the collections area. Well, you can probably just give the regular project management role access to the collections area. If they don't need or want to do it, they don't need to go there, but they could also go there to view things. So you may have created a role on the fly just because you need to satisfy a request at that moment, but now that you have time to kind of take a step back and look at it and see, do we really need all of those roles? And if you can find a way to consolidate them, I highly recommend doing it. Also, getting a refresher training on security roles and how they work. There's so many different options and uses and toggles and things that I feel that people don't really realize that they can do. I have a situation, or you may have a situation, where you want to give people access to projects and reports that belong to the same profit center or organization that they do. Well, that's a simple one-line security setting here, and that will eliminate their access from any other project or reporting on a project outside of their own department, and eliminates the need to set up multiple saved searches or multiple favorite reports that have the searches in there for the departments or profit centers because you've already put it within their role. So getting a nice, good 2 to 3 hour training on how security works and what it does, and we can also throw in reviewing the Vantagepoint security as well. The few different nuances there, I think, will go a long way in helping you clean up your roles. There is a role summary report in 7.6. When you're in the roles screen, you just go up to the top and hit print and print the role summary report. That'll put it to paper for you if you want to be able to print it out and kind of see all of it at the same time. During your test upgrade, everybody, we're going to recommend, and Deltek has recommended, that you always do a test upgrade. Deltek calls it a preview. Whatever you want to term it, you have to do that when you're going from Vision to Vantagepoint, regardless. It's not one that you can just bite the bullet and upgrade. And I would evaluate some of the changes in the processes that you're going to find as you go through Vantagepoint. So as we just discussed how opportunities are going to merge into projects, that may make you rethink how you're giving everybody access to the system in general, or at least into those areas. The fact that firms and vendors are going to be combined, that may make you rethink how you're giving people access and the ability to add or delete or modify in those areas. So the roles should almost be the first thing that you touch and the last thing that you touch when you're in your test environment. What I recommend and it's completely up to you, you're going to need to update the roles regardless. No matter what, every role that comes over is going to have some imperfection, and you're going to need to adjust it, and you're going to need to adjust it to accommodate to the new look and feel of Vision as well. However, I personally think it might be easier for everybody to just start fresh, create those roles in Vantagepoint, and test them thoroughly. Make sure you're logging on as that person that uses that role. Make sure they have access to everything that you want them to have access to, and they don't have access to anything you don't want them to have access to. And once you've taken care of all of that and fixed them and gotten the roles where you want them, then it would probably be an easier process for you when you upgrade for good to Vantagepoint. Instead of scrambling to re-change your existing roles, you can just assign everybody to those new roles that you've set up, which you will need some assistance. Those roles can be copied from your test environment to your live environment, which we can help you with. And then you just assign everybody to the new roles and delete the old roles. So in theory, within 5 or 10 minutes, you're ready to hit the road running if you do it that way. Otherwise, you will have to make all those changes again because they won't be preserved from the test to the final, although they could be potentially copied as well. So just some suggestions there. After upgrading for good, either update the roles again or assign them, as I mentioned, and then it couldn't hurt to perform testing again. But in theory, we've done all of that during the testing process when you had your preview environment. But roles are very critical to what people can do and can see and can't see. So it's very, very important that you go over them with a fine-tooth comb and test them thoroughly. And that's all I have.
Okay, great. Well, there is two questions that kind of go hand in hand. So the first one is from our buddy Neil, and he is asking a question I think kind of goes back to when they were originally talking about Vantagepoint and roles. He's asking, can a user have multiple roles?
Not yet. I'm not actually sure if that's still or where that is on the roadmap, but with version 2, that is not here yet. It doesn't mean that you can't have a person have 2 usernames, like it could be M Garner and MM Garner, and they could have 2 different roles and log on and log off. That's obviously the way that you do it now and not very convenient. But right now, a user cannot be assigned to more than one role.
Right. I know they had that. At one point, they were going to incorporate that, and then it kind of came off the roadmap. So don't know if it's back on there. And so then the other question was from Susan regarding a new alias role. And I guess you were saying something, Susan, about the ability to switch roles.
I think it's the same thing that Neil's talking about.
Yeah.
And yeah, it did not make it into 2.0. Another thing I want to throw out there, I've seen this in a lot of system reviews, is the users aren't disabled when they're terminated. So that actually technically means that user can get back into Vision after they leave your firm. I see that people have gone in and they've terminated the employee, but they've not disabled the user. So check your users as well. Not that that's harming anything or has anything to do with the upgrade to Vantagepoint, but I highly recommend that you make sure as part of your offboarding or exit process for employees that you disable their user access into Vision.
And that also means if you've set up 2 logins for them because of wearing 2 hats, make sure you're disabling both.
Correct.
Awesome. Well, I think what happened was Stacy just overwhelmed everybody, and they bombarded us with questions, and everybody else kind of got tired when they got to your point because we don't have a lot of questions pertaining to security. So again, we'll kind of take the whole Proportunities to the next level in our next meeting, and we'll kind of add that to our presentation. And with that, we will give you all back about 6 minutes in your day.
Desiree.
She is funny.
We're right there with you.
Exactly. And we can, let's see, there was another question in there from Susan, if you want to get that, Melissa, and then I think we're done.
I don't know how to answer it.
Oh.
I'm not aware of it, so. But I'm going to look into
we'll
it.
Check on that. Okay.
Yep.
Absolutely. Okay, I think that does it for the questions that are in the Q&A panel. So I think, Kaylee, you can go ahead and close out the event. And for everyone that's hanging in there that's left, we will talk to you next month. Have a great holiday weekend. Stay safe, and we'll see you all in June. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.